Hi, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I hope it was nice and rejuvenating and that you got to actually take Memorial Day off. So today, guest with us, his name is Reza Yassi. He is the founder of a company called Attornneed, and they provide project-based internships for law students. I'm Angie Viscianen. I'm the founder of Leg Up Legal. We provide a pre-law mentoring for pre-law students to attorneys for mentoring. And we started doing these Zoom meetups every Tuesdays and Thursdays, just so that people could have a chance to bond with each other during the COVID-19 pandemic and get some resources that might help them in law school and their legal career journey. So welcome, Reza, and I'll let you take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Reza Yassi. I'm the founder of Attornneed, where we connect law firms and law students through assignment-based virtual internships. Before I get into a whole spiel, I just want you to know that if you're a law student and you're in this program right now, you're already ahead of the game. You won't believe how many people go into law school blind, not knowing what it is, what it entails, or anything about it. So you're doing yourself a huge favor by being in here and being part of this program. So I commend you for that. As far as my company goes, I'll tell you guys how it came about, and then I'll tell you guys what I connections between attorneys and law students. So I started at Attorneyed when I was in my 3L year of law school. You'll find out when you're in your L year that you have a lot of time on your hands, so it's a great time to start a business. But I started the company because I went to a middle-of-the-road school, so to say. I love Hofstra Law School. It was a great school. But when it comes to how it's ranked nationally, it's just a middle-of-the-road school. What tends to happen in those schools is that the top 5 or 10% of the students get all the really good internships that everyone wants, right? So the rest of the students are kind of left picking up the scraps, so to say. And I kind of wanted to change that. I wanted to provide students with opportunities to pursue their career, even if it's on an intern basis. So we came up with this idea to provide assignment-based virtual internships. What these are, just what they sound like. They're short-term internships where you're working on one assignment or 2 assignments, whether you're working on a contract, a motion, but just so that you get a taste for an X field or Y field. So to make it profitable for lawyers, we have to find a way to entice them to want to utilize this. So we made it so that attorneys can utilize interns when they want them without the costs or hassles associated with a regular internship. So this is just a really nice niche that we're working with the firms that are trying to utilize this program. So I'll tell you guys about how our program is built. And then I'll get into what I look for when I'm looking at a resume or just an applicant. And then I'll tell you guys what stands out to me as someone who is reviewing your resumes and writing samples. So usually the way it works is a partnering law firm will give me an assignment. They'll say, hey, Reza, I need for a motion, right? So I have one of my recent clients is an art client. He does art law and he does art law litigation, which is a very niche but very interesting and unique field. What I'll do is I'll take the description of the assignment and I'll send it to my email list of students who may be interested in art law. So then I ask them, and this is the key part, I ask them to reply with relevant information about relevant experience. Now I have a very relaxed term about relevant experience because the big oxymoron is how can you get relevant experience if you can't get an internship in that relevant field? What I'm looking for is not that you've gotten a previous internship at an art law firm. What I'm looking for is that you've tried to gain experience in the field that you're going in, right? So how do you do that besides gaining that internship? Well, you can join the relevant clubs in the law school. So if you're you're going after a sports law career, you need to be in the sports law group. You need to be at your school. You need to be part of that group. What else am I looking for? I'm looking for relevant, books that you've read, relevant podcasts that you listen to. I'm looking to see if you've ever even read the CBA or any agreements, whether you can actually talk about them. So I'm looking for in your pre-law or undergrad background. I'm looking for whether you took relevant courses, even as an undergrad. I'm looking for whether you were an athlete or, it's a passion of yours. So it's easy to say, hey, I don't have relevant experience and no one's giving me relevant experience. But if you really want to go into a specific area, you need to curate your resume so that it's targeted to where you're trying to go. So that's the first thing I look for. Another thing I look for is students often reply back and they just send me a resume, or there's a lot of misspellings in their reply to my email. Like, those students are automatically out. You have to be cognizant of what you're sending to potential employers. It's huge. It's really important. And those people are easy to just remove from the list because there's so many people who want these positions, right?
Yeah, and I think it's an important note to say too is that, a lot of students think, oh, you're just the conduit for these jobs. Like, I should be trying to impress the people with the jobs, not you. But that's totally false. You should totally be trying to impress people like Reza. So, definitely when you're interviewing managers, HR people, folks like Reza who are actually trying to help you get a job, make sure that all of your correspondence to them is, pristine. You've spell checked it, you've checked for grammatical errors. You'd think that all of this is common sense, but it's really not so common. So just make sure that when you are sending anything to Reza or anyone else has any connection in the hiring process, that everything you send them is.
Yeah, I'm also a practicing attorney. If I ever sent something to a partner that was, misspelled, poorly grammared, or, it didn't respond to the question that he asked, I'd be laughed out the room. So that's, that's the initial first step, is just the simple stuff right. After I've, easily eliminated 95% of applicants, then I start looking at your resume, your sample, and your transcript. So I've taken some notes on what I specifically look at in those things, and I'll go through it with you guys. Okay, so the students usually get back to me with a combination of their resume. So the first thing I do at the resume, again, spell check the resume, grammar, and I want to see relevant work experience. As I said, I really want to see, not that you have the relevant experience, but you've gone after getting the relevant experience. And what have you done to put yourself in a position to gain those internships? One thing I really think is huge, really, really, really important when you're 1L, networking, right? So network with the people that you can, and reach out to the ones that you think you can. When you're in law school, lawyers look at you and they have this idealistic view of what they remember law school, and they really want to help law students, especially young law students who aren't afraid to go out there and directly reach out and say, hey, in the first year, or we have the same alma mater, I really like to know more about your field. You're not asking for a job. You're not like, hey, give me an internship. You're asking, can I have 10 minutes of your time? Can we do a Zoom meeting? Can we go out for coffee? I'd really more about what you're doing. It'll go a long way. There's some, people are more willing to help you than you realize. They really are. And lawyers love to talk about themselves. So, you take them on a coffee meeting, they'll talk the entire time. And even if you're not a great networker, you just let them speak, they'll do it.
I completely agree. And I also completely agree with that approach. Like, don't try to go into it being like, I need a job, because lawyers can smell that coming from a mile away, and that'll instantly turn us off. We're going to be like, sorry, we don't have a job for you. And that's going to be an easy way for us to, deny your request. Mm-hmm. So when you are making the approach, totally just invite them out for coffee, or right now, invite them for virtual coffee. Can I get 10 minutes of your time on a Zoom call? I just want to learn a little bit more about you and your path. Completely 100% agree with everything that Reza said. I think it's really, really important for you to be out there networking. And it's exactly as he said. The top 5%, 10% of the students get all those magical, amazing jobs that you see, that are posted on the law school's job boards. And then everyone else is scrimping and scraping for every other opportunity. And the main way that they get those other opportunities is that they're out there networking. You have to create your own opportunities. So totally follow his advice.
And as far as that goes, I think LinkedIn is such a tremendous tool that can be utilized for this exact thing. People who aren't great networkers in person, right? But there's a sense of reducing that fear when you're reaching out through text, through LinkedIn, where you're just, it's a lot easier. It's a lot more comfortable, especially for people who might be introverts or who are just not great at, those networking events. Like, I'm not particularly great at a big, large networking event, but I'm never afraid to reach out to someone on LinkedIn because it's even a real no. So I think that's really important. The next thing I look at is obviously your transcript. It's important to get good grades. That's just a simple fact. The better grades you get, the better off you will be. However, what I'm looking for is relevant grades. So I'm looking for, especially because my internships are usually writing intensive internships because they are virtual, so you're not going to court or anything like that. So one of the first things I look for, and I think a lot of employers look for, is your legal writing grade. They want to know that you're a good writer and that you can do the basics. That, again, goes back to professionalism, grammar, all that together. Another thing I'm looking for is relevant grades. So if you're applying for a civil litigation position, I want to know that you're getting good grades in your torts class. If you want to be a constitutional lawyer, then I want to see that you've gotten good grades in your con law classes. So you might want to pay extra attention to those classes that you're already in, which you should be doing anyway. But that kind of lets me see whether you actually want this internship or whether you just need an internship. And I think that's a big thing. Finally, I'll look at the writing sample. And what I do with the writing sample is I put it through Grammarly, which it gives me a baseline of something that's not from my own perspective, but it's just a baseline. And then what I'll look for after that is your understanding of your argument. It's nice to use big words, but only if those big words are actually used in a way to shorten your argument and better elaborate your argument. If you're just going across your paper and just replacing simple words with synonyms that are more fancy, it shows. So really focus on being concise to the point, because once you start practicing, it's really important to be concise to the point, because there's so much litigation, so much going on that people just don't have the time to go through an extensive paper, whatever it be, transactional or litigation based. Once I have that, then I'm usually down to 3 or 4 applicants that I'm going to nominate. I'll usually interview those 3 or 4 applicants. And for me personally, what I'm looking for in an interview is no red flags, really. Because people think that their first impression of people is really good and accurate, but studies show that it's not. You're better off relying on someone's resume, writing sample, transcript, and work product than you would be relying on the impression you get from them, because it could often be wrong. There's a really good book, Talking to Strangers, about this whole thing. But just in general, it's, I'm only looking for red flags. So what does that mean? I guess in a virtual setting, it's just that you're dressed professionally, you're saying all the right things, and more importantly, you're not saying any wrong things. And be prepared to talk about your resume during the interview. I've heard horror stories of people going into an interview and then being asked about one of the jobs they had, and they're just freezing and not knowing what they're, anything about the interview. Know everything that's on your resume and be prepared to speak about everything on your resume, which also goes into practicing this, which is working with fellow students, interviewing each other. It's huge. It's really important. You do that. You be prepared to interview, be prepared to speak about everything on your resume. If you're going to put down, I read X book on Y topic, be prepared to talk about that. That's what we're looking for. I'm looking for red flags. I'm looking for people who are dishonest or who have things on the resume that aren't actually true or accurate to who they are. So I think that's all about how my internships work. At the end of the day, I'll send, the 3 to 4 resumes to the client, and I'll let them make the final decision. And what I have found is, it's not always the person with the best grades that gets the internship. It's usually, and this goes back to the whole relevant experience, it's usually the person with the most relevant experience, or the person who has shown that they are passionate about this topic enough so that they will take their time in law school to focus their education on achieving success in that field.
So Reza, can I ask you, during the whole process when you're going back and forth with the law firm, when it gets down to the final group of candidates, are they still only looking at those people on paper, or do they bring all those people in for live interviews?
So usually I will send, 3 to 4 resumes to the client, and they will take, I'd say usually they decide who they want, right? They'll say, I want X and Y, but they'll say, before I get started, I'd like to interview them. At that point, I'm very much confident in the people that I'm nominating, that it's a very smooth transition from interview to start the job all within one step, if that makes any sense.
Okay, but if it's down to just a few people and they're giving a live interview to all of them, what are your suggestions to make yourself shine in the interview as opposed to all of the stuff on paper already?
Okay. Well, like I said, I'm looking for red flags, so don't present any red flags. Be honest with your resume, because you're going to be asked about everything in your resume. Don't dress properly, be prepared, be on time, simple stuff. Also, I'd like to, I usually have a story to tell. The first question usually is, tell me a little bit about yourself, right? Now, you don't need to start with, I was born in 1985 and blah, 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 and then go through your entire, but have a story, have a reason why you're in law school. Why did you want to become a lawyer? What is driving you to want this job? It's really important, because some people are just like, yeah, I went to law school and now I want to do sports law because, I watched a show and it looks cool. Like, it needs to be something from the heart, something that drove you. And I think for most of you, there's a reason you want to be lawyers. So just hone in on that and develop a story around it, because that's what you need to do as attorneys, is really, especially if you're a litigator, you're going to have to tell a story. So start practicing that. Find the reason why you went to law school and have the intro ready so that you can just regurgitate it every time. But outside of that, it's just really knowing your resume, and then obviously doing some research on the firm that you're going to, doing some research on the partners you'll be interviewing with. That's really huge. It's second nature by now, but you really have to know what you're going in for. You can't just go into an interview and have no idea what the firm does, or have just a slight idea what the firm does. You could take it even a step further, and if it's a larger firm, really talking about where you want to be within that firm. Maybe like honing in on the specialty that you want to specialize in. Maybe it's bankruptcy law. Maybe it's X, Y, and Z. And knowing about their accomplishments. A really easy thing to do is Google search them on the news, recent topics. Check out their profiles on their website about the attorney. There's always a synopsis on who this attorney was, what school they went to, accolades, any relevant wins, any big wins for litigators. They may have been featured on X article, they may have been featured on a podcast, whatever you can to show them, hey, I'm prepped, I did my work, I'm ready, right? That's really what you want to get across.
That is so key. That's what I was trying to get to. I think that is great advice. I hope you guys are taking excellent notes, because that is so, so true. So I did an on-campus interview once where I was the attorney that was sent to OCI to interview law students. And we only had 30-minute slots, right? We lined them all up. And I had law students who came in and said, I'm so excited to work for your firm. I think it's so cool that you guys do intellectual property. I can't wait to do patent prosecution. And I was like, you obviously didn't read anything about our firm, because we have 0 patents. Like, it just blew me away how many students had no idea what they were interviewing for. So like, and totally true. Not just research the firm, research the attorney. If you have any idea, if you can get a sense of who's interviewing you, message if your career services office from your law school set it up. Ask them who's going to be conducting the interview. Or if you are going through an HR manager, ask them, hey, could I find out beforehand who's going to be in my interview so I could make sure that I'm prepped up? Like those types of things, totally fair to ask. But yes, absolutely great advice.
One last thing. So this is more of a personal thing that I do in interviews, but I always have a notepad with me, right? I take notes. I'm prepped for this even, right? I take my notepad inside, and if I know that I'm a little bit forgetful, I have notes. I have talking points in front of me. So if I'm ever lost, I can just look down and it'll get me back on track. Some people find it a little taboo to walk into an interview with notes. I don't. I think there's nothing wrong with it. And I think that it can, as far as whether you don't remember something or you have to look down to remember it, I'd much rather have to look down and to remember it and have a good interview. So, don't feel like it's taboo to do that. Bring in notes, bring in whatever you need. Don't make it extensive. You can't have a binder in there. Just have one piece of paper. And just if you get lost, you're in there.
Yeah, and take some notes while you're in the interview too. Don't be writing the whole time head down, but try to take a few notes, because you'll be surprised. Like, some of these firms that may interview you, they will put you through a marathon of an interview. I could never have been prepared for a big law interview, because the first time I came in for a big law interview, they told me, we're going to have you in here for 4 hours. We have 7 different attorneys that are lined up to meet you, and then you're going to go out to lunch with the associates. And so, like, it was literally an all-day affair. And so by the end of it, my brain was exhausted, and you are not going to remember very much from that interview. So, like, write down the names of all the people you meet, because you want to send every single one of them a thank you afterwards.
Absolutely.
Don't just send it to the partners. I can't tell you how many times when I had to interview students, I was amazed at the students would only send thank you notes to the partners, and they don't send it to the associates. But guess what? The partners ask us what we think too. Like, maybe we don't have, final say in who gets hired, but we can tell them, you know what? That kid didn't send me a thank you note. So, don't discount the younger attorneys or the lesser experienced attorneys. One, they will be able to tell you more of what's actually happening, boots on the ground, for the younger attorneys. Two, they do have the ear of whoever that partner is, so they might have a little bit more power than you think, especially in a small firm. So totally take notes, and make sure you send thank you notes afterwards.
Yeah, quick other thing, or the staff, for that matter. Be polite when you walk in. Be nice to everyone. You never know what kind of pull someone has at the front desk that you may never even know about. But professional, that's just part of the general professionalism. You're on your game the second you walk into that law firm, and you don't relax until you're out of there. That's just how it works. So yeah, I think I'm done with my spiel. If there's any questions, I'll take that.
Well, I wanted to ask you real quick about so I know we chatted right before this a little bit about, what can the students be doing right now? Because it's a really, really unique time. And, since you approach law firms all the time about these project-based internships, which I say is not necessarily the norm, do you have some ideas for students as to how they could maybe give some creative approaches to the law firms on, okay, I know you can't hire me for a full-time job right now, or, a regular summer internship, but could you just give me like a project or two that I could?
Yeah, I mean, like right now, I think it's just a tough market. So if you're struggling with an internship, it's not you. It's just, we've had a pandemic that's just kind of destroyed the world for a little bit. And I think we'll recover soon, but don't take it personally. It's just a terrible market. Some of the things you can do is, you want to stand out, and I think putting yourself out there is the first thing. So get to your LinkedIn, clean it up, make sure everything is accurate, make sure you've got a good, picture, make sure you've got descriptions for all the positions you've done, and then put yourself out there. Just start connecting with people, telling them, you're looking for an internship, even if it's on a short-term basis, even if it's on a project basis. That you'd be willing to do unpaid internships, whatever it may be, to just put yourself out there. There's a lot of things you can do. Like if you want, you can start like self-posting articles on LinkedIn if you really wanted to. If you have the confidence in yourself to self-post, just write an article about a legal topic that you're interested in. Anything you can do to just garner some attention and show people, this guy is really getting after it, or this girl is really, passionate about this topic, and she's willing to, work for free. She's willing to work on an assignment basis, just wants some experience. And if people see that, and it's a genuine passion, and you're genuinely getting after it, people will be attracted to that, and people will find you work. They'll like, that's another thing about internships and why some attorneys don't do them all the time. It's because they have to go out and sometimes they have to find the student's work, but they'll do it for someone they like.
Totally. And one of the things I've been really seeing that's really cool is if you want to be giving yourself some credit for all of the networking that you're doing, I've seen a lot of students posting, you know, hey, I connected with an attorney today on LinkedIn. These are some of the insights they shared with me. These are some of the takeaways that I had. And they put that on like their LinkedIn post, right? Then they put it in the featured section of their LinkedIn profile. So that's the one place where attorneys can see, oh, this student gets it. They've been networking. Because I don't see a lot of places where you can give yourself credit for that. But I do think that using your LinkedIn profile to do that is really.
Yeah, I mean, just simply talking to an attorney and then following up with a post of, I had a great conversation with X, he highlighted Y, or, you know, he told me X, Y, and Z. Just a simple post like that, like a follow-up post. I guess it's the modern day follow-up to an email, right? It's the follow-up post-interview email. It's just like, yeah.
Exactly, but it's public and everyone can see it. And you can even tag the attorney if you want, you know, and that way other people will find out about that attorney and you'll raise their profile too.
And
you know, go ahead.
And don't be shy about, you know, self-promotion. It's the way me and Angie met. It's the way, you know, like people will just reach out to you. You won't even imagine it, but people are just like, oh, what you're doing is really interesting. I want to know more. And then from there, you just take it to the next step. Just be genuine, be honest, tell them what you're looking for, and they will help you. Most attorneys are willing to help an undergrad, especially, yeah. Oh my God, they'll be so willing to help an undergrad. A law student, yeah. Once you get out, not so much, but.
Yeah, I always tell them, I'm like, listen, once you've graduated, that's the tough part. When you're trying to get that first year associate position, second year associate position, oh, it is so hard at that point. But take advantage of being an undergrad, taking advantage of being in law school. This is the time when they really want to help you. When you're out there competing with them for jobs, they don't want to help you no more. But when you're genuinely coming to them like, hey, I'm just starting my career. I would really love your advice. I know so many attorneys can't think of that.
Yeah, it's really because, like, you know, people like to talk to people, especially nowadays. Like, people are stuck home alone. So really, it's critical. When you go to law school, half your job is getting good grades, the other half is networking. And if you can put those together, you're going to have a successful career.
Totally. I saw we had a question in the chat box. So Barbara's asking, speaking of books and podcasts, how do you add those to your resume or bring those up in an interview? Like, how do you highlight that you have done the research about this practice area when you're applying for like one of your internships?
So I would have I would have a section under like all your grades and your classes and stuff, and it's just relevant experience, right? So if you're applying for, I just like to use sports law because it's such a popular topic, but like if you're doing that, I've read, you know, X books on this topic. I've read, you know, just name the books. If you're listening to a podcast that's pertinent, you know, name the podcast. If you've read the CBA or read some contract that no one else would, put it in there. Just be careful if you're going to put it in there that you know that you can talk about it, right? Because that goes to honesty and red flags. So if you're going to put it in there, be ready to talk about it. But you can put whatever you want on your resume. Like, there's no rule that says you can't put relevant topics on your resume. Just find a portion of your resume where you're comfortable saying, this is my relevant course load, relevant experience, relevant books, relevant podcasts, relevant contracts I've led, whatever it is, and just put everything you've done to get yourself prepped for this internship under there. You know, maybe even like you've taken a prominent person who's in the industry out for coffee, put that in there. Just say, you know, coffee, lunch with, you know, if it's a big enough name, put it in there. Why not? Right? So never be shy of promoting yourself in your resume because that's what it is. So put every little thing in there. Just be prepped to talk about it. Don't get caught off guard because that looks terrible if you put it in there and you didn't do it, right?
And some of my students have like written blogs or helped other attorneys write blogs on specific cases or whatever. Put that in there. Make sure that that's in there somewhere. Like, hey, you know, wrote a blog article for XYZ attorney on this. That type of experience is great. Like, I think right now a lot of firms are looking for students who do engage on social media more, who write their own blog posts, who can help the firm kind of get their social media articles out there. I think that's a big opportunity for you guys.
Yeah, if you can show that you're social media savvy or just tech savvy, it's huge bonus.
Alrighty, well, I think, do you want to just open it up to a Q&A? Anybody who wants to chime in with questions, feel free to either type them in the chat box or turn on your videos and mics and ask away.
Is it okay if I get started?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm going to law school right now. It will be my first my first semester this fall, so I'm really excited. But I'm also nervous about, I guess just anticipating my getting internships when I go in the winter break and then eventually in the summer, after my first year. How do I prepare for those legal internships when I don't have any legal internship experience? I'm taking this prep classes from Kaplan to get myself ready for my first year. Like, what else can I be doing in order to show that I'm doing stuff, even though like we're stuck at home and there's not a lot that I could be doing now.
So do you have an idea of what kind of law you want to practice?
Yeah, corporate law.
Okay, so I would start doing research on corporate law. Now, do you have a more specific than just corporate law? Is there a subsection of corporate law that you'd like to do? Because it's a very large field, corporate law.
Yeah, of course. So actually, I was gonna just after the class that I'm taking from the Kaplan, like to get myself ready for this first year of law school, I was gonna dive into a little bit more. But I do like just like disputing contracts and doing a lot of that stuff and just analyzing loopholes and stuff like that. I do find it very interesting.
Okay. So what I would do, the first thing I would do is read more about corporate law and the many sections in it. Corporate law is just a very broad category of the type of work you do. So once you kind of know what area you want to zone in on, that goes back to just, getting yourself in a position to get relevant experience. So once you get into law school, join any clubs that are relevant to that area. There's plenty of books on what corporate law is like. So I'm not asking you to read a corporate law book, but read a book about what corporate law is like. Read articles, read or listen to podcasts about corporate law, so that you get a better understanding of what it is, what it entails, because it might not be for you once you get there. But more importantly, now you have all the stuff that you did, right, to prepare to get that corporate law internship. Put that on your resume. Hey, I've read, 4 books on corporate law. I've listened to these podcasts on corporate law. I've reached out to, this person who's, huge in this firm. And, we spoke about his job, what it entails. And I know, this much about that field. So I think, you have to find a way to get relevant experience without someone giving you an internship. People like to help people who are helping themselves. And, it's not an excuse, I couldn't get the corporate law internship, so, now I can't get relevant experience. You can get relevant experience. You just have to go out there and find it for yourself. I hope that helped.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I've been taking a lot of notes. Thank you so much.
Hi, Reza. I'm Adser. I'm a pre-law student. I just took the LSAT. So my question is, someone as an undergrad who did not take enough pre-law classes, my emphasis was on political science, political theory. I also write fiction on the side. So as someone with a more non-traditional undergrad background, should I decide right before I go to law school what field I want to specialize in? Because at this point, I don't know what field I'm leaning towards to. It's either entertainment or criminal. Should I decide like as soon as possible before I go to law school, like what I want to do, or?
No. Just have an idea, right? Go into law school with an open mind, and there's 2 schools of thought. Whether you want to just focus on school and get the best grades, right, or whether you want to get a diverse legal education, doing a few clubs here and there. I'm of the mindset that you have time to get that relevant experience in your 2L and 3L year, and that you should really just focus on getting good grades your first year so that all the doors remain open to you and that you get to choose which doors you enter once you're on that level, right? Because if you don't get great grades in your first year, it's a little harder to get those positions. That's just the fact of how things work, right? So if you're undecided like you are and you don't know where you want to go, really focus on just getting the best grades you can your 1L year, right? So again, 50% you're on your grades, the other 50% I would do, networking, but general networking, just, fields that you may be interested in, just reach out. Hey, I'd like to learn more about your practice. I'm a 1L at X school, and I'm really interested. We went to the same law school. Go to the professors in your law school who are teaching those relevant topics and just introduce yourself. Just aside, one thing that I forgot to mention is your professors in your law school are going to be your colleagues one day. Treat them like they're your friends, with respect, but they're huge resources and they will become your friends. I still have relationships with my law school professors. I text them, having fun, just joking around, because it's huge. But anyway, back to what I was saying. For you who doesn't know what you want to do, I would really focus on my grades to keep all those doors open for you, so that once you do know what you want to do, that's when you can start specializing, start honing in on what you want to do. So your 1L year, focus on your schoolwork, and at the same time, network with people and try to get an understanding of what kind of work you want to do. If you get good grades, then there will be a bunch of opportunities available to you anyway. Your 2L year, when you're going into your summer of 2L, and from there you can then start honing in on what you want to do. Start doing the things I talk about. Making yourself gain relevant experience.
Thank you, Reza. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I just dropped some links in the chat box. So if you want to find out more about different practice areas and really research them more in depth, you can look at Chambers Associate has great practice area guides. It's a website that breaks down all the different areas of law. There's also hg.com has a breakdown of all those areas as well. I think there's also a book from NALP about different legal specialty areas, but I think the last edition was probably 2014. So it might be a little bit outdated. Just keep in mind that the law is constantly evolving. So different practice areas may crop up all the time. You may see practice areas that intersect with lots of other practice areas. Even though I practice trademark and copyright law, the boutique firm that I worked for also did a little bit of social media stuff, privacy. There's all these areas that are kind of intersecting now. And a lot of emerging areas that you never saw before: blockchain, tech, cannabis law. Make sure that you're starting to stay apprised of new areas of law coming up, because that's where the opportunity is. I think that's one really important thing to keep in mind is, yeah, there's always the good old bread and butters like corporate or tax or whatever, but some of those areas really struggle when the economy is bad, okay? So that's where the work slows way down. And so be aware that you're probably going to be heading into law school during a time when the economy is not very good and it may not recover by the time that you graduate. So start thinking about some ways to hedge your bets. Don't just rely on the old bread and butter practice areas. So for example, yes, corporate, M&A, all those areas tend to slow down during bad economic times, but bankruptcy and restructuring usually skyrockets during those times. And so they're still, highly related to each other. So getting experience in one may help you in the other areas, and it'll be a way that you can hedge your bets a little bit to make sure that you have some job opportunities.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, having a niche in the law is huge. If you have a great niche, you're set for life, basically, especially in these emerging markets. If you know crypto law or if you know marijuana law right now, you're doing well no matter what, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a great point.
What other questions have y'all got? Come on, don't be shy. These are great opportunities for you guys to talk to real attorneys. So, chime in, ask your question.
Yes. Hi, Mr. Yassi. I hope you're doing well. The thing is that today I'm actually having a meeting to talk about a shadowing opportunity. It's happening a couple of hours after that. I didn't plan it to happen at the same time as this meeting, but I guess it's just convenient. But I wanted to ask you, since it's not a formal interview, it's more just a discussion with a current attorney. What topics should I bring about to discuss with them?
you know what kind of attorney he is?
Yes, he's a prosecutor, a criminal prosecutor, actually.
Okay. Well, for the most part, it's really easy to get attorneys to just talk about themselves. So just let him, lead. When I would go into interviews, I would usually let them lead. They might ask you questions. Just be prepared to talk about yourself a little bit. What's driving you to want to shadow a criminal prosecutor? What has impacted you in your life personally that is driving you and that desire to go be a criminal prosecutor. That's usually a powerful thing to talk about, right? And really discuss his day-to-day, like what his job is like, what you'll be doing, what he's looking for in someone who is shadowing him, what your responsibilities will be, right? Because you want to know how you can be the best you for him and how you can be useful, right? Because it's, you have to look at it and what are you bringing to the table? What are you going to do to help him out? Because, he doesn't owe you anything. He doesn't have to do this for you. But if you can show yourself to be valuable and to show yourself to be passionate about what you're going to do, then he might be interested, right? And internships are, they work both ways. It's two people are doing something for each other. So you have to bring something to the table, right? And that's what you want to emphasize. Hey, I'm a hard worker. I do X, I do Y. But highlight that. And for the most part, just let him tell you about his practice and ask any questions that you have. There's really no dumb questions unless it's actually a really dumb question. But, ask away. He will answer any questions you have. And, just don't take yourself too seriously and just really show your value.
Okay, thank you. I think that's great advice, but I'm just afraid that I might be selling myself too much to him, since it's not for an actual interview. Do you think I should maybe sometimes take a break and talk about some pretty casual stuff about movies, for example, about shows you've watched, or should I really focus on the job aspect of it?
I think you let the conversation go where it goes. But I wouldn't I wouldn't slot a, hey, let's talk about my favorite movie section of the conversation, right?
Sure.
I would start though, Lexi or Zexi, I would start though with, just asking him, hey, how are you doing right now? How has coronavirus, impacted you or your practice?
Mm-hmm.
Everything okay? Because I think right now is specifically a time where we're all feeling this collectively, and it's a good way to build rapport with people right away. And he might mention something during those first few moments that really gives you some more insight into, hey, his practice is really, really different right now. I mean, prosecutors, I don't know how this might be impacting them right now, because you know what, people are still out there committing crimes. Coronavirus didn't stop that. So, but maybe it's really changed the way that he gets to interact with the opposing counsel and the DAs and those types of people. So I think if you ask those kinds of questions, it'll show him that you're cognizant of the fact hey, these are slightly different times. Another thing that you might want to see is, do you know is he on LinkedIn, or does he write a blog, or does he do any of those types of things?
No, I didn't find out on LinkedIn, but he's actually the father of my friend, so
okay.
I think it's gonna be.
Did you Google search him?
Yeah, I found some cases he's been working on in the past.
Okay.
And I'm definitely
do you blog about any of those?
I don't think he blogs about it, but I'm definitely gonna bring that up in the discussion, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For certain areas of law, it's probably not as helpful as others, but I don't know if, as a prosecutor, he can even talk about any of that type of stuff. But those might be things that you could volunteer, and say hey, I'm happy to help you in any way I can. If I can write you a really good LinkedIn recommendation, or if I could, help write about an area or an issue or a case that you've been following that you're interested in. I'm happy to do research in those areas and find more.
And you said he's your friend's dad, right?
Yeah.
Just talk to your friend about him. Be like, hey, what's your dad like? What is he doing? What are his passions? What are his hobbies? Just want to, like I said, you want to do your research on who you're going to be talking to. So just
definitely
a little bit. But as far as planning to talk about non-organic, non-relevant topics, Sometimes it goes well in your head, but it doesn't usually pan out the way you do. Now, if the conversation leads itself there, then yeah, but you want to have an organic flowing conversation and let the conversation take you where it needs to be. But, having planned things and throwing things in there that, might not work, like 50-50 shot.
Okay,
and I would
sure.
say kind of the same thing on the flip side, since this isn't a formal interview. If you just decide to shove all your credentials down his throat, that might not be the good approach either. So, I've had law students do that to me. Like, they're like, oh, can I just talk to you, for 10 minutes over coffee? And then they literally regurgitate their resume to me. I'm like, I'm not hiring you for a job.
Yeah.
So just, be mindful of your approach. Don't try to go into can.
For sure.
Yeah, but I think just have an organic conversation. Like, he's anyone else. Obviously, be respectful, but he's just a human. All these people, they're just humans. They have flaws. They have topics they want to talk about. They have topics they don't care about. So just go into it with that mindset. I know it's a little intimidating at first, but once you do it a bunch of times, you realize they're just human.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot.
No problem.
What else? We've got about 6 minutes left, so feel free.
Good afternoon. Coming 3L, and so I want to work in big law after I graduate and pass the bar. And Angie, you mentioned that the process takes 5 to 6 hours for interviewing, but I haven't worked, I didn't get a summer, first summer associate position, like a big firm. I just worked at a government agency. So, I'm just concerned about getting my foot in the door to even get the long interview before, yeah.
That's going to be really hard. If you're not going through a summer associate program right now, you're probably not. Probably. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying probably not. So for me, when I was coming out of law school, I went to a regional law school that had a really strong reputation in IP, but it was not a T14 school. It was not a law school that big law would typically look at unless they were looking for an IP candidate. And I also did not summer with any big law firms while I was in law school. I had really good work experience, just not with big law. And so I ended up getting 2 job offers from big law firms, surprisingly. But I ended up turning both of them down to go to a boutique because the boutique had actually better clients. But trying to get those 2 opportunities from big law, I really, really had to fight. And I networked like hell to get them. So, it's really hard. I would say if you really, really want it, I would start, reaching out, networking with attorneys who are already at big law firms, not to try to get a job, but just to start talking to them and just getting
informational interviews.
Getting a sense of what's out there right now. How's the firm doing? Because they might even tell you hey, all the work's dried up. It's scary. And big law is not a good place to be when the work is dry. It's not. It is hard. It is, especially as a first year, because you're going to be fighting with people who are already experienced and they already have the good relationship. So you're just going to be putting yourself in a real tough spot. I would start reaching out to big law attorneys. I would start attending their events, try to find CLEs that they're speaking at, trying to connect with them after the CLE, showing them that you're passionate about what they are particularly doing. But this time, it's all about bonding with the person. It's not about bonding with the firms. Firms it's hard to bond with them, okay? So you go bond with the attorney, okay? So find a way to, go to their CLEs, go to their presentations, find out what they're writing about, engage on their blog posts, on their LinkedIn posts, on their social media, do whatever you can to get your in, but it's going to be really.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did you say you're a 3L or incoming?
Incoming 3L. So I just finished up my second year semester and I'm going to start 3L in August.
Yeah, there's still a outside shot, right? But like you said, you really have to network. Another thing I've heard of is kind of backdooring it, which is people who start working at boutiques and get a niche field, and they lateral into law firms because they need that niche and they might not specialize in that niche.
Right.
They're both pretty hard to do.
But I did do that, but only after 4 years. So I worked at the boutique for 4 years and then lateraled into big law. But right now I'm hearing that the lateral sweet spot is around 2 to 3 years. So actually, that might actually be a good route.
But, you know, those are, you know, you really have to be in a niche spot. You know, like 5 years ago it was like crypto and marijuana law, and now, like, I don't know, self-driving cars. Like, it's, you know, it's really got to be niche. It's an interesting, you know, but it's really got to be niche.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Can I do a follow-up?
Of course.
Okay, so my question, Mr. Yassi, is that a lot of legal writing tends to be very dry and boring, I've noticed. So as someone who writes creatively, do you believe those writing fictional stories, that do you think that skill, like writing articles on social media, you could think that translates well to actually writing about like cases or drafting documents in law?
Ooh, that's a tough question. All right, so I got to put my like practicing lawyer hat on. And I think it's really about the level of law you're practicing, right? So I do civil litigation in New York, where the judges see or have to read, or their clerks have to read hundreds of papers a day, right? They're not in it for the flowery language of your motion. They're not in it for that. And I've actually been told to like tone down my writing because I'm trying to get a message across to somebody, and I'm trying to do it as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And I'll be honest, you know, some of these positions, some of these judges are elected positions. They're not there on merit. So they might not even, like, you know, comprehend what you're trying to say. You know, you don't want to be too flowery. At the same time, if you're writing a motion to an appellate judge, you know, then you can maybe, you know, raise the level of your writing because the reader is at a higher level also. So it's really depending on what you're practicing, the level that you're practicing at.
And the type of law, because if you're in litigation, you're going to be writing for judges, but keep in mind that you may be writing for a different audience. So if you're in-house, for example, and you're writing for business people, and you might want to be more creative, like those might be places where you can shine. Okay, so just keep in mind that not all legal writing is the same, and you always want to think about your audience. So might be other areas or other types of legal writing you could do.
Exactly. So it's really about your audience, and yeah, it's really just about your audience.
Thank you so much. I answered my question. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, well, we're at the top of the hour, so thank you so much, Reza, for being here today. And, you know, if you guys want, connect with him on LinkedIn, and if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to send them to me. We have another meeting on Thursday, and this time we're going to be hearing from a chief legal officer who actually was general counsel and chief legal officer in a number of different organizations, and then finally decided to open up her own boutique where she offers fractional chief legal officer services, which means she gets to spend some of her time at lots of different organizations. And so it's a little innovative model. It's different. And I think you guys are really going to love her practice experience. So feel free to come and join us for that. And Reza, thank you so much for your time.
No problem, guys. Feel free to reach out anytime on LinkedIn. I'll get back to you.